This is Chelsea from Little Mountain Ranch, and today I'm going to talk to you about how we keep our pigs and our chickens warm in the wintertime. Whoa! Cypress is always trying to knock me over. Cypress, really? Why? Just say hello to everybody. See, he's doing the paw thing that I mentioned in that video. Hi, Cypress. The first thing that I wanted to do before anything else is I wanted to welcome all of our new subscribers. Hello, thank you guys so much for joining in on this adventure. We really appreciate the fact that you guys think that we're interesting enough to watch. So thank you guys so much. And if you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button so that you can follow along with what we're doing. I'm gonna say burr, just warning you for the entire winter. I don't really like cold, so it's cold like this. It's only, I think, -5 or something like that right now, so it's not that cold, but it's too cold for me. So yeah, lots of complaining about how cold I am. Whew. So I wanted to talk to you today about how it is that we keep our chickens warm, and just give you guys a few kind of really cool facts about chickens that in ways that they actually keep themselves warm. The first sort of interesting fact about chickens is that they don't really need a lot of extra heat. A lot of people think that you need to put sweaters on them or put heat lights in their chicken coops and things like that in order to keep them warm. But in our experience, and we live in central British Columbia in Canada, and it's cold up here and it can get to -30. I've even seen it like -38, -40, so super cold. And we have never had an issue with losing chickens, and we do not use any type of secondary heat source besides the chickens and the cool way that they can keep themselves warm themselves. So some of the ways they do that, I don't know if you guys have ever seen chickens, well, you probably have, but you know when they fluff themselves up and make themselves really fluffy? The reason that they do that is, this is super cool, but they fluff themselves up and it collects air in underneath their feathers. And then their body temperature warms that air up and it stays blocked, and it kind of gives them a barrier between their skin and the cold air out on the other side of their feathers. So it's a way for them to actually keep warm. They actually create their own insulation. It's not just the feathers, it's the warm air inside of their feathers that helps to keep them warm. The other thing is that chickens can give off up to 10 watts of energy just with one chicken. And when chickens bunch together, and you've probably seen that when they're on their perches at night, or even when they're standing like mine are right now, they stand close together. 10 chickens can create as much energy as a 100-watt light bulb. And that's quite warm, and a lot of people will use a 100-watt light bulb in their chicken coop for extra heat, and they actually can do that themselves. And I think that's really neat. One of the other things is that chickens, like any animal, will acclimatize to the environment around it. And so, like, you'll notice, you know, most animals, when the cool temperatures start coming on, they'll form a thicker coat. If they're a furred animal, they'll form more feathers, more down. So they will actually adjust to the temperatures. If you have an artificial environment for your chickens in the chicken coop where it's extremely warm, and then they come outside, their body is never really acclimatizing to the cooler temperatures of winter. So they either have to stay in the chicken coop all winter with their heat light, or they could end up getting sick by having to go back and forth between that warm and cold and warm and cold, and never being able to really adjust to the fact that they need a thicker coat, or a thicker, I guess, a coat of feathers. And also, one of the problems with using a heat light, and for us, is power outages. And for us, we end up with power outages frequently throughout the winter. So if your chickens are used to having a chicken coop that's, say, like 5 degrees Celsius or 10 degrees, somewhere in that range, because of artificial heat, and you lose power, and say you lose power for even 2 days, those chickens have absolutely no protection, natural protection, against the cold temperatures, and you will end up losing a lot of your flock because of those temperature changes. And that's something that I hadn't really thought about before. We haven't used heat lights for other reasons, but I hadn't really thought of that one until I was looking it up the other day and went, wow, like that's actually something that I hadn't considered, but that is actually a big consideration for us here. One of the reasons why we choose not to use a heat light is because heat lights are a huge fire hazard. Chickens produce a ton of dust. You guys have probably all seen this, anybody who has chickens. Chicken coops are a dusty, dusty place. And that dust forms on the light bulb and can actually cause fires. And there's been tons of fires. I think last year there was 3 or 4 barns and chicken coops lost in our area to fire because of heat lights. And then also, you know, if they did fall down, get in the sawdust and anything like that. They get super hot and they're a huge fire hazard. One of the ways that you can help your chickens, because you can definitely assist them without giving them a secondary source of heat, is by keeping your chicken coop draft free. Drafts are a huge issue. You don't want to have cold wind coming through because that's going to drop the temperature in the chicken coop, especially wherever that chicken's standing, if it's in the wind path, way more. Like, you know what it's like if you go outside and it's not cold, or it's cold, but it's not that cold, but then a wind comes up and it feels way, way colder. That's the same kind of issue. If you have a draft blowing through your chicken coop, it's going to make it way colder in there. So keep it draft free. Also keep it well ventilated, because chickens give off a lot of moisture. They do it with their breath, like I am right now. You have your chicken coop closed up and all those chickens are breathing, you're going to get a lot of moisture in the air, and you want somewhere for that moisture to go. So make sure that you have ventilation along the roof of your chicken coop so that moisture has somewhere to go. Also, keep your water outside of your chicken coop, even right outside of the door of your chicken coop, or in this case, we have an undercovered run, so this is where we keep our water. So that, again, the same issue. You want to keep moisture out of your chicken coop. The droppings that chickens drop also give off a lot of moisture, especially because they're warm when they come out, and all of that evaporates off into the air and creates more moisture. So you want somewhere for that to go. And that leads me to bedding. Keep it dry. Dry, dry, dry. That's the name of the game. That's the way you're going to protect your chickens more than you're going to protect them in any other way. Keep it dry. We use a deep litter method, which basically means that we clean our chicken coop in the fall, and then we put wood chips down and we build that up over the winter time and then clean it out again in the springtime. Now, you want to make sure that as you notice that there are droppings accumulating, cover them up with a good layer of shavings, and just keep doing that. Keep it dry, dry, dry. If you do that, if you keep your coop well ventilated, if you make sure that you keep it dry and so there's not a lot of extra humidity in there, and make sure that you don't have drafts, your chickens should be good in just about any temperature. Now, I will say, if it gets down to minus 30 here, and it stays, and the weather forecast says it's going to stay that way for a week, I would put a secondary plug-in heater in our chicken coop for that period of time, only because that's an extremely cold snap and lasts for a long time. And because we don't normally have that kind of temperature drop that lasts for a long time, it might happen for a day or two. Our chickens aren't acclimatized to that type of cold temperature over that length of period. So we will give them a little supplementary heat during that period. But other than that, we don't, and we have had no issues. One of the things that you can do if you live in a cold climate, is to make sure that you get buy chickens that are heritage breed chickens, that are hardy breed chickens. I'll show you a picture right here, or here, whichever, I'm not sure where I'm going to put it, but where you can see the difference between, I think it's called a pearl comb, but I'll have to double check that, and just a regular comb. So frostbite can be an issue with chickens, and that's the reason they'll stick their head underneath their wing, is to keep their comb from getting frostbite. But if you get one that has a small comb, then you have less surface area to be frostbite. So that's something to think about. Hardier breeds that have, really thick feathers, things like that will definitely help out. I have found, because we've bought the standard, I actually have a few in my coop now that we got in the springtime that are just sort of your standard commercial layers. They don't do as well in the winter because they're not bred to do as well in the winter. They're bred to be in these big, massive chicken houses that are heated, and there's 250,000 of them or whatever. So they're not bred for this kind of climate. But even those guys have done pretty well for us. But still, the heritage breeds definitely seem to do better. So now we will head down and check out the pigs. I have something to show you guys. A very adorable little surprise that we ended up with just over a week ago. So we'll go check that out, and I will show you guys how it is that we help keep those guys warm in the winter time. It's basically the same kind of idea as what we do with our chickens, and that kind of applies across the board for most livestock. So let's go check it out. Look at that. So this was the little surprise that we came down to. When we were evacuated, at the very beginning of the evacuation, we had a few issues with animals getting out of pens, and apparently, according to this, the boar got in with the sow. And I had a suspicion a couple weeks ago that she was bred, because aren't they cute? Look, they're coming to say hi, look. Hi, babies. Hello. Cuties. I had a suspicion that she was pregnant, and I said to Dan, I don't know, I think she must have gotten covered at some point because she looks bred to me. And sure enough, the other morning we came down and this is what we found. So it is winter. It is November. They were born at the end of October, and and it is cold. It got down to -20 one night, and these little piggies, as you can see what they're doing in there. They're cuddling up with mom, and I've come in here a few mornings and they've been buried right underneath the hay. So they know how to keep themselves warm. In our case, we use deep bedding method because it actually starts composting underneath there and keeps them warm, keep them protected. All the other sows coming to check me out now. Hi girls. Hi girls. Say hi everybody. Hi everybody. They think that I'm gonna feed them again, but they already had their breakfast this morning. Hello, big mama. They're so cute. So same rules apply with chickens. You want to keep humidity out. You want to make sure they have lots of ventilation. And in these temperatures, unless it gets really cold, we will cover up the entrances of their sheds. But for the most part, we leave them open like this. Really deep hay. And we let it build up over the winter time, and then it starts composting and actually gives added warmth, and the pigs love that. When it gets really cold, I'll throw a bunch more bales in here, and they actually will cover themselves completely up with hay. We have had really, really cold temperatures and never had an issue. We bought some pigs a while ago that had been in a barn, and like quite a big barn, and they didn't have a deep layer of hay, and they actually had frostbite on all of the tips of their ears, and we've never had an issue with that. So this works pretty well. Look at them, aren't they sweet? Try to get a little closer, but this mama tends to get a little grouchy. Good job, mama. I'm actually going to go up and get a little bit more hay for them so that they can really layer up. But this works well. These guys stay super toasty warm. Look at them. One of the extra things that you can do to help keep your pigs and chickens and any livestock that you have warm is to give them a little bit of extra feed before bedtime. Keeping warm takes a lot of extra energy, so you'll usually find in the winter that they need a little bit more feed than they normally get. You could give chickens cracked corn, something that's high in protein. Same with pigs, and it'll help to keep them a little bit warmer in the wintertime. For the most part, farm animals are designed, plugging in the electric fence again, there we go, are designed to be able to withstand some fairly cold temperatures. Just gonna go check the barn. So any animal that's vulnerable in some kind of way, like this girl, she has a bum leg, so she's in the barn. I do have areas where I can keep them a little bit warmer, use supplementary heat, or just have them in more of a sheltered environment if they need it. So that's always a good idea, is to have some way to look after animals that for some reason aren't able to look after themselves. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you guys have any extra ways that you go about keeping your animals warm in the wintertime, I would love to hear about that, so leave me a comment below. Give us a thumbs up. Just so you know, the reason why a lot of us YouTubers ask you, hey, give us a thumbs up, is because it gives us feedback around our videos. It lets us know what it is you guys like, which videos you guys seem to prefer more than others, that kind of thing. It's a super helpful thing. And it also helps with the YouTube algorithm. It sort of picks up on videos that are doing well and then suggest those videos to other people. So it's a way for us to be able to get our content out there to a broader audience. So I just wanted to kind of explain that, because I always feel kind of weird when I'm like, hey, give it a thumbs up, but that's the reason we do it. And then there's a little bell notification, I think it's down over here, and if you click that, then you get notifications that let you know when we post new videos, so you don't have to always be checking. So you may notice that it looks a little bit different out here all of a sudden. It's nighttime. It's because when I was just editing my video in the house just a few minutes ago, I realized that my battery had died and it cut off before I'd actually said bye. So bye everybody, we'll see you soon.